Hey there everybody, this is Caitlin here and welcome to Card Game Tuesday, the day of the week where we have anything card game related on the channel. And this week we're going to be doing another deck profile, not a challenge this time because it's not the Wednesday, but just a regular deck profile video. But before we get into right on that, I think you're most interested in this absolutely gorgeous mat that we have here. I actually treated myself at Christmas time. I was like, you know what, I'm going to commission a new playmat to feature on the channel and whatnot, because it's been a while since I actually commissioned a playmat or whatever, or rather actually just bought a custom playmat for myself. You've probably seen previously the ones that I had were like the kind of Sylvia wallpaper one with her like famous little quote and whatnot. So this time around, I decided to get some custom artwork because I was dying for something that was, you know, kind of summed me up and summed up my channel. So I commissioned this lovely piece of artwork with Sylvia and Nyarlathotep because they're my two favourite fire rulers. So that's why I got them. And obviously they've got a little love heart here because I think that's totally cute. And obviously Sylvia's not looking too impressed and Nyarlathotep is looking absolutely cheeky as always. So the artist, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to pronounce it right. My apologies if I butcher it. The artist page name at least was like Marco and Lisa. I'll put a link in the description, guys, if you're interested. They've drawn like a lot of different Force of Will artwork and stuff. And, you know, they are very good, especially like for these kind of like detailed face shots and whatnot, and like the detail in the shine of the hair and everything and the expressions. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So if you're ever interested in commissioning them or checking out their artwork, I'll leave a link in the description to their page below so you can check them out. But I absolutely love this like playmat. It looks absolutely gorgeous and I love it. It's also, the artwork here is also going to be like my wallpaper for my home screen for my computer as well. So after that little shout out, we are actually going to go into the deck profile that we have for today. And today I decided to mix up a little bit and do a Wanderer deck because it's been a while since we've done anything that's like, I don't think I've actually done a Wanderer deck in like this new format where Grimm Cluster has rotated out and whatnot. So instead of New Frontiers, we're doing a Wanderer deck, and this is actually a deck I played at my local Wanderer tournament. It did okay. It didn't do so well, mainly because it was going up against two different versions of Alice World. There was a Feed Sing Alice World, and there was like a Yggdrasil Tree Alice World. And while my deck did hold its own or whatever, I just got in the end I got obliterated by it. Like, I didn't really have any answers for it. But against my third match, I actually went up against Dracula and I did a lot better. I actually won that round. So I still have faith in this deck. I would maybe I've made like a couple of little changes or whatever in the side deck to try and fix a few things or whatever. So basically the actual ruler that we're going to use is Grimmia. Now, before you saw me when I made like a Knight of the Round Table specific deck for Grimmia, this time around I'm calling it the Knights of Light, if I can actually say it correctly. It's going to be a mono light deck. This time we're going to be mainly focusing on getting Grimmia flipped and getting those additions on Grimmia, because when I got Grimmia out and I got like 3 of his additions onto him, he was just unstoppable. He was like taking things out and taking names, and it was absolutely wonderful. So if you've never seen this, it starts off obviously as Pandora, the Weaver of Myth, and to J-activate we pay light obviously, but we can decrease that depending on how much life we got. So we pay 5 5 light normally. If our life is 3,000 or more or less, then we pay 4, and then if it's 2,000 or less, we pay 2, and then if we are 1,000 or less, we pay 0, which is pretty epic. And then when we flip it over, whenever we do, it becomes Grimmia, the Saviour of Myth, who's a 1,000, and it has the continuous ability that whenever this card attacks, you can search your main deck for a weapon. It has to be addition /J/Resonator, and add it to this card, then shuffle your main deck, which we've got 3 of his kind of like the additions that work well with him. We can also pay 1 light, and we can give it swiftness and target attack until end of turn, so we don't necessarily need to run the Levitating Demon Sword. And we can pay 2 and banish an addition added to this card and rest up to 2 target Resonators, which isn't a neat ability, but I'd rather not use it for that. I'd rather keep the additions on it as much as I can, because the addition that we use, which we'll go into a little bit later on, it busts him up pretty well, and like it does like such wonders for us. So going into it, we do have mainly a lot of Knights of the Round Table in the deck, but we have like kind of accommodated a couple of different things with like from the new sets and whatnot to try and like give it a little bit of a sporting chance. So starting off, we actually have 3 copies of the Beast of Holy Light. Now, the main reason I'm running this is because of its inheritance. Its inheritance is extremely handy, so preferably I would prefer to keep this in my hand and like wait wait it out, and then cast the inheritance rather than actually play the actual Resonator, because, for 1 drop it's okay, but I would rather, like, wait, keep it in my hand as an extra, like, spell, whatever, and able to boost something by 300 and give it barrier from darkness and fire. So that's really the main reason why we're running it, and we've got 3 of these in our deck. Next up, we are running 3 copies of Pandora, the Princess of History Chanter, which obviously in the new Lapis cluster, whatever, Pandora is now the queen who married Grimm. So this is like her before the kind of time skip thing happened or whatever. She's a 1-cost light resonator, human. She has an awakening ability of 2, which is 2 light. When she enters your field, search your main deck for a card named Grimm, the hero king of Aspiration, and put it into your field, then shuffle your main deck. So basically, if you pay the 3 on like the turn you play her, whatever, you're getting 2 resonators out in that one go, and she comes with 300, so we're running 3 copies of her. Next up, as I said, we're running a lot of knights and whatnot. So, of course, if you're going to be running knights, you need Percival, the Seeker of the Holy Grail. And, I only actually have one of these, the old-fashioned full arts, as we call them back in the day, when we had, like, the weird kind of funky stamp on them, which they don't have them anymore. But if you're new to the game and you didn't know, but back in, like, Twilight Wanderer, this was what the full art was. It was basically like this weird stamp thingamajig before we got, like, actual proper full art. So I'll just switch over to this one so I can actually read you what Percival does. She's a Knight of the Round Table. She's 200 for 1 light. When she enters your field, you reveal the top 5 cards of your main deck. You may put a Regalia or Knight of the Round Table from among them into your hand, and the rest go to the bottom of your deck. And then you don't actually have to shuffle after that. You can then banish this card, prevent all damage that would be dealt to a target J ruler or a Knight of the Round Table until end of turn. And we're running 4 copies of her because she is insanely useful, especially if you're running like Regalia / Knight of the Round Table deck. There, she is insanely good. We are also going to be running 3 copies of Galahad, of the Son of the God. He's a 2-cost, 400, Knight of the Round Table. Whenever he attacks, we gain 500 life, which is very useful. And when this card is put into the graveyard from our field, we can rest a target resonator our opponent controls. And we're running 3 of him for just a handy little 2-cost. And then next up, just for like a little bit of fun, I'm also including Gawain, Knight of the Sun. I actually managed to get the promo versions of him. I need to get 2 more promos of him because I only have 2 right now. And, as much as I like the other artwork, I prefer this one more because it looks so much more cooler. He's a 2-cost Knight of the Round Table, 300, 700. Our other Knights of the Round Table that we control gain 200, 200. And whenever this card attacks or blocks, we rest a target resonator. So we're mainly using him for the buff he's giving to the rest of our knights, and obviously because he's a good blocker, because he's got that chunky 700 defense for just his 2-cost, which is very nice indeed. Next up, we have the Angel of Wisdom Cherudim. I'm running 3 of this. Again, another 2-cost. It's a 500 flying, which is very useful because we've not got too many flyers in this deck, so he's good for like blocking and whatnot. But we've also got his Awakening, which is when this card enters your field, you destroy a target fire or darkness resonator. If you do, put 2 100 counters on this card, which is very handy when I was going up against the Dracula deck, because obviously that was all dark resonators, so that was very handy indeed. And we do have a way to spend moon, so don't worry about that. Next up, we are running the card that actually works with the Pandora we saw earlier, the Grimm, I can't even speak, Grimm, the heroic king of Aspiration. It's Aspiration, isn't it? Yes, it's Aspiration. 2-cost, 500 for 100. Other light resonators we control gain 200, 200. So not only is Gawain going to be giving our stuff, giving our knights anyway, a 200, 200 buff, Grimm just gives all light resonators a buff as well, which is very handy, which is why we're running 3 copies of him. So essentially, if we can get all 3 of these guys out, we're getting buffs of like 600, 600, unless our opponent decides to pick them off. And last, for our 2-drops, we're running 3 copies of Zero's Familiar, which, if you remember my Lumia deck or whatever, I was saying how for light decks or whatever, or things that are incorporating light, I do feel the need to incorporate Zero's Familiar in some fashion, just so we can protect our J Ruler from the, what's it called, the Magic Moon, not Magic Moonbeam, is it? The Black Moonbeam? Yes, Black Moonbeam, because Grimmia is like a very good, kind of end game, basically a win game for us. So we really need to protect the Grimmia at all costs. The Owl obviously gives our J Ruler barrier, meaning that they can be destroyed by the Moonbeam, and also it's another flyer to add to our team. So if we don't have enough angels, then and we have like multiple copies of the Owl out, then we can make sure that we protect our ruler and maybe chump block something that's flying. Next up, for our 3-drops, we have 2 copies of Glorius the Silver Knight. This is a 600-700 quick cast, obviously. When this card enters your field, destroy target J/Resonator that dealt damage this turn. This is mainly so I can kill J-Rulers who are being really, really annoying. So usually I would keep this for a J-Ruler or something that's really, really beefy and I know is going to be a pain in the backside. We're not going to be using any Firewall, so this pretty much, this bottom bit is a bit null and void, but we're running 2 copies of that. Next up, we're running out 2 copies of a Bedivere, the Restorer of Souls, a 3-drop, 700-700. It's got target attack, aka precision, I believe, which is what it got renamed to, which is this card can attack recovered J/Resonators. When this card enters your field, you may destroy, or you may remove, a target Resonator with 1000 or more attack from the game. Again, this is mainly for those things that are like really chunky in attack. So say the Flame Dragon of Altia, any of your other dragons like Gwyber or things like that. I did manage to remove 2 Gwybers with this card actually. It was very handy indeed, and I'm very glad I ran it. I've only got 2 copies of it, so that's why I'm only running 2. Next up, we have one of our, not really attackers or whatnot, but one of the ones that really helps us like kind of cinch games and whatnot. We have Arthur, the Arthur Pendragon, Knight of the Round Table, who is a 5-cost 12/12. This card cannot be targeted by fire or darkness spells or abilities, which is very handy, considering that fire and darkness are pretty big in most decks. And also, Resonators your opponent controls have to attack this card if able. So basically, our opponent cannot choose another target, they have to attack Arthur. And most of the time, if they're attacking, they've maybe only got like a couple of like little things. So basically, they are forced to attack Arthur if they are able to. There's no if about that or whatever. So basically, it's like, if they're rested, obviously they're not going to be attacking Arthur, but if they're standing, I believe they are forced to attack Arthur. There's no, like, choosing not to attack or whatever like that. And then target Resonator gains plus 800 defense until end of turn if we choose to tap it. I'm running 2 copies of that. And then lastly, just for like a little extra boost, we're running 1 copy of Izanagi, the Keeper of the Seal. Mainly just running this as just another get out of jail free clause if like I'm wanting to remove stuff from my opponent's field. It's a 6 cost, and when this card enters your field, you may remove up to 3 target Resonators and or Regalia your opponent controls from the game. When this card leaves your field for a non-field zone, put those removed cards into their owner's hands, and this card gains 300 for each card in all removed areas that was removed by this card. So basically, if we manage to pull off the removing of the cards, then this card goes up to 2000, which is insanely good, because there's not many cards that off the bat can get up to 2000 without outside spells, abilities, or buffs, whatever. So this is an insanely good card, but we're only running 1 copy of it because of how costly it is. Going into spells, for some reason, I only have 1 copy of the spell. I'm not sure if the rest of them, are they not in my... They're not in my deck box. For some reason, I'm only running 1 copy of the spell in the deck. I might have removed them for some other deck or whatnot. I'm thinking it might have been my Lumia deck. I don't remember. Do I run this card in my Lumia deck? I'm not too sure. I feel like I remember running more copies of this card, but I may actually be wrong. This is very bizarre. But anyway, the card I'm actually talking about is Zero's Magic Light. But even though I've only got 1 copy of it, I would actually suggest running 4 because of how insanely good it is and how handy it is. So even though I've only got 1 copy here, in my deck list I would actually include 4. So it's a 2 cost, obviously, because we're not running 0. It's a quick cast. We remove target attacking or blocking Resonator from the game, and simple enough for a spell and whatnot. I would run this at 4, even though I've only got 1 copy here. Additions I was talking about, we only run 3, and the one that we're running is actually Ragnarok, the Divine Sword of Savior, and it's got this neat ability, obviously, that added J/Resonator against 500, and the other continuous ability is if a Resonator dealt damage by added J/Resonator put into the graveyard, then we basically remove that Resonator from the game and we gain life equal to its defense instead. So once Grimmia flips and we declare attack, we can add this for free, and it's every single time he attacks until basically we run out of this card in our deck. So we can get Grimmia up to at least, I believe, if he starts out at 1000, we can get him up to 2500 essentially, which is pretty insane for a J-Ruler, in all honesty. Last but not least in the deck is we obviously need some Regalia to support our lovely J-Ruler. So in terms of Regalia, we've got a couple here. We have 1 copy of Death Scythe. This is mainly to make sure that our opponent loses Imperishable and Swiftness, and also we can just tap it and give it 200, just like that. We are running 2 copies of the bow. This is mainly to kind of snipe little things that are attacking that our opponent thinks that they can chip away with us at. We can just tap it, remove a counter, and deal 400. Also gives us target attack. We are running 2 copies of Excalibur, the God's Sword. This also gives us target attack. And if we tap it, then our J Ruler gains 200 again. And we can banish it and give our J Ruler imperishable. And then we're running 2 copies of Apollo, the interdimensional vessel. This is good because it's going to give Grimmia flying, so we can smack our opponent in the face. And then also we can tap it to do the Moon Awakening for our Angel, which is very, very handy indeed. So those are all the Regalia that we're going to be running. Now, in terms of our magic stones, it's a little bit complicated. So basically, the idea of this deck is that ideally, you could potentially just run all pure light magic stones, because there's really no need to have dual color in like the main build of this deck. However, my stones are a little bit different because there was no one playing any deck that included Captain Hook at my tournament, so I wasn't scared to run special magic stones, which I know a lot of the people in the meta right now are scared to run special magic stones because of the potential of Captain Hook. But in my magic stone deck, I actually ran 4 copies of the, is it the Call to Arms Memoria? Oops, I'm dropping this card all over the place. Where did that card go? Here it is, here. The Call, I can't even say it. Call to Arms? Oh no, Call to Actions Memoria. I can't even read the damn card. It's because it's the full art version, and I'm finding it very hard to read. Here we go. Here's another kind of less foily one so I can actually read it. It produces light, and then if we pay a light and a void and tap it, we can gain, is it 400 life? Yeah, no, it's 100 life. We just gain 100 life. So really, the only reason why we ran these is because they are obviously very, very pretty to look at. And obviously, the potential to gain life is there, which is very, very handy indeed. Also running one of the Little Red, the Pure Stone, because I still love this card. It is absolutely, I love the artwork and whatnot, and I feel compelled that if I'm ever going to run a Wanderer deck, I'm always going to include this, because it's such a shame that this card is no longer legal in New Frontiers, because I love it so much, and like I love all the different artworks and like the different colors and whatnot for it. So basically we're running 1 copy of it, because if you run any more copies of this, then it destroys itself. Basically you have to banish it, so you only run 1 copy. It can be you basically choose the attribute once it enters, basically. Yeah, as this enters your magic stone area, you choose an attribute. We would obviously choose light. And you can also tap it for target resonator that shares the same attribute to get 200 until end of turn, which is really handy. I'm also including 3 copies of the White Light Jewel Stone. This is mainly because of a card that we're including into our sideboard, but obviously if you're not wanting to run the sideboard or whatever, you would just maybe swap these out for light stones. And then the last ones is that we've got 2 light stones here. I've got one promo one or whatever, and just a normal one here. And as for the sideboard, as I was talking about, the card that actually uses green that would not make this mono light is the Wind-Skilled Refuge. I would only keep this in the sideboard just for a situation where I feel like the owl is not enough to protect our J-Ruler. If I feel like, okay, I'm not too sure the owl is enough, obviously we need to protect our J-Ruler at all costs. So basically that's the only reason why this is in the sideboard. The other card I was also thinking of for the sideboard would be Pandora's Mark of Hope, which is quite a neat addition or whatever, because this is one of the new additions. It is a light one. The bestowed resonator gains 400, and when our bestowed resonator is put to a graveyard from your field, we force for 1, basically roll a die. We gain 200 life multiplied by the result of the roll. And to bestow, it's just 1 light and tap. You can bestow this. We play this ability only once. So I'm running 3 copies of this in the sideboard because I think it's such a neat card. Maybe for those kind of slower games that are not too rushy, I would include this in. And the kind of last things in it is that we're running maybe 2 more copies of Bow and 1 more copy of Grimm. Just like situational ones where it's just like, we could potentially run Regalia if we know that our opponent doesn't have any Regalia removal or Regalia hate in the deck, and the extra Grimm just in case, you know, we want to slip that in for anything else. So that is basically this deck, guys, for this Wanderer of Pandora / Grimm for our Knights of Light. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have been thinking about building some Wanderer decks yourself. Maybe there's going to be more Wanderer support for you guys in your local area. Also, tell me what you think of the playmat, if you think it's absolutely gorgeous, whatever. And if you were to get a custom playmat, what characters would you include in it? I would love to hear what you guys would love to see. And until next time, guys, I will see you all later.